Hello and welcome to readadayclub. This is Amreen. Before I begin, I just want to thank you all, anyone who's watching the video for engaging with us, watching our content and just being a part of readadayclub. Not just here on YouTube but on Instagram as well. Sometimes the sheer number of messages we receive on Instagram is unbelievable. Now, I'm not trying to boast or anything of the sort. What I'm trying to say is that all the appreciation and all the conversations that revolve around books really motivate us to read more and to talk about books even more, and in more creative and delightful ways. So anyway, today's video is all about the trilogy Childhood, Boyhood, Youth by Leo Tolstoy, my first ever Tolstoy. He's always been such an intimidating novelist, Russian novelist, but I had to just get over it, pick up the book and read it, which I did, and I loved it. It's such a soulful, philosophical, and I want to say insightful read, but it's more cerebral than it is insightful. The protagonist, Nikolenka, the one who goes through the 3 stages of childhood, boyhood, and then youth, I perceived as myriad versions of my own inner self, and I am pretty sure that anyone else reading the book will also at some point will have felt the same. Now in this video, what I'm doing is I'll be reading my 3 favorite excerpts that in my opinion sort of summarize the whole sentiment of the book. I won't be getting into the literary theories of the book because that stuff is already out there. So let's get started with the first excerpt. Much water has flowed by since then. Many memories of the past have lost their meaning for me or have become confused dreams. And even the wanderer Grisha has long since finished his last pilgrimage. But the impression he made on me and the feeling he aroused will remain in my memory forever. This is the protagonist Nikolenka talking about his childhood years, where he was often confronted by a host of bleak feelings like shame, pity, sadness, insecurity, and that sense of not belonging. It was only in and through his mother, his maman, that Nikolenka ever felt any comfort. If in the most difficult moments of my life I could have had just a glimpse of that smile, his mother's smile, I would never have known the meaning of sorrow. He repeatedly talks about memories of the past, of his childhood, both sweet and sinister memories, rising up and settling into the dark corners of his childhood memoir. Yet, they were powerless, because what purpose does regret serve other than haunt your present conscience? At least in the case of Nikolenka, a self-conscious child who often felt that everyone despised him, and so he developed a loathing and contempt for most people in his life. Another excerpt. Has it ever happened to you, reader, suddenly to realize at a certain time in your life that your view of things was undergoing a complete change, as if everything you had known before had suddenly turned a different, unknown side towards you? That kind of mental change took place in me for the first time during our trip, which I also consider the beginning of my boyhood. Now this certainly felt like I was reading about myself. Nikolenka's character feels so real, so relevant, and so emotional all at the same time. And that is the very nature of emerging self-awareness. You start to view not only yourself but also the world and the people in it through a different lens. After all, transitioning from one phase to another is what life and this book are all about. The text may be autobiographical, although not completely, but there is a little bit of Tolstoy's reality embedded into the intrinsic psychological value of the book. The self-improvement, the shyness, the perfectionism, the loss of loved ones during early years, these are all drawn from his own life experiences that end up taking the form of Nikolenka's moral insight, remarkable depth, and his melancholic, awkward journey to maturity. And now the final excerpt. Sometimes, or even quite often, I would get up early. I slept on the terrace in the open air, and the oblique rays of the bright morning sun would wake me. I would quickly dress, put a towel and a French novel under my arm, and go for a swim in the river in the shade of a birch grove less than half a mile from the house. I would lie down on the grass in the shade and read. From time to time, looking up from my book to gaze at the surface of the river, violet in the shade and riffled by a morning breeze, or at the field of yellowing rye on the opposite bank, or at the pale red rays of morning light tinting lower and lower the white trunks of the birches as one after another they moved away from me into the depths of the virgin wood, and enjoy the awareness in myself of exactly the same fresh, young power of life that nature was emanating everywhere around me. Now I know that I said I won't discuss any literary theories, but you can't read Tolstoy's trilogy and not praise his almost enchanting ability to describe and romanticize nature. Through this book, I've acquired a taste of, or should I say, built a whole appetite for his quintessential way of merging nature and feelings and making them one singular entity. The way Nikolenka perceives nature throughout his journey of childhood, boyhood, youth is reflective of his state of mind and growth in each phase. Nature always seems to take on a strange new meaning for him, and that meaning consists of both overwhelming beauty and incomplete happiness. He says that even though he is alone and petty and wretched, even then the majestic and mysterious nature of nature, with all its mighty power and imagination, would become the source of all that is beautiful and good in the world. It would still seem to me in those moments that nature and the moon and I were one and the same. I hope you enjoyed that bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to sum it up. There's just no end to talking about this book simply because the writing is so magnificent. While reading, I was just so taken aback by Tolstoy's demonstration of human nature that I remember writing down something only so that I don't forget it. The way he's described human emotions and feelings at such a basic yet profound level that it's hard to put into words. One can never do justice, no matter how many words you use to describe what the words here mean and what's read or implied between the lines. And I stand by what I wrote even after completing the book. I strongly believe that if you ever want to become a writer, reading childhood, boyhood, youth is a must. Although he was a bit too self-critical about this first work of his, and honestly speaking, I don't see why. Because his unique art of making human nature with all its shallowness, egoism, vulnerabilities seems so transparent right from the beginning itself, makes his later works like War and Peace. Okay, I lost my train of thought. I don't see why he was so self-critical about this book, because his unique art of making human nature seem so transparent right from the very beginning itself makes his later works form a sort of continuum where you can actually you can actually recognize the transformation of the soul of his work. Okay, so to sum it up, Nikolenka is a character rife with anxiety, confusion, and rebellion in his childhood, with separation in his boyhood, and finally finding solace in that isolation in his youth. Please, if you want to know more about this book, I cannot go on simply because then the video would become just too long. Right, so I hope you read the book, and I hope I was convincing enough. If not, then I hope that you at least enjoyed watching the video. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you so much for being here. And Nikolenka thanks you too. Oof, this book.